The Galactic Tribunal's mistake. The Galactic Tribunal convened in the grand halls of Varkari Prime, a world of towering obsidian spires and shimmering plasma lights. Representatives of the most powerful empires in the galaxy sat in a vast amphitheater, their bioluminescent robes glowing with anticipation. At the center stood Admiral Zalvorin, his crimson-scaled body tense with frustration. "The humans," he scoffed, voice carrying across the chamber. "They are primitive, a fledgling race barely stepping into the void. Their technology is crude, their fleets laughable." A murmur spread through the chamber. Some delegates nodded in agreement, but others hesitated. The humans had expanded rapidly over the past century, establishing colonies on Mars, Europa, and even the asteroid belt. Still, no one truly believed they were a threat. Chancellor Varkari, a senior Varkari official, raised a clawed hand. "Then why do they resist our demands? They refuse to submit to the Galactic Compact. They build warships instead of tribute vessels. They fight when they should kneel." Zalvorin bared his fangs in a smirk. "Because they are fools. I propose an immediate invasion. We strike hard, obliterate their defenses, and install a proper Varkari governor on Earth. A single planetary bombardment will break their spirit." The vote passed without opposition. Humanity was dismissed as a nuisance, not an adversary. The Varkari fleet, a force of 200 capital ships, was dispatched to Earth at once. First contact with war. On Earth's lunar defense station, Commander Elias Kane stared at the sensor data with growing unease. The signals were unmistakable. A massive fleet was approaching the solar system. The United Earth Defense Force, UEDF, had prepared for a potential alien threat, but never at this scale. "Confirm count," Kane ordered, voice steady. A junior officer swallowed hard. 200 warships, sir." Varkari signatures. Kane exhaled slowly. So, it's finally happening. For years, Earth had watched from the shadows as the galactic powers ignored them. Humanity had learned from history. Empires only respected strength. The UEDF had spent decades preparing in secret, reverse engineering alien technology salvaged from black market traders and deep space wrecks. The solar defense grid activated, its orbital railguns aligning with mechanical precision. Automated stealth frigates powered down their emissions, waiting in the asteroid belt like silent predators. The Varkari thought they were attacking a helpless world. They were walking into a trap. The invasion begins. The Varkari fleet emerged from warp space, their sleek, spear-like warships forming a blockade over Earth. Admiral Zalvorin stood on the command deck of his dreadnought, Vorkal, watching the blue-green planet with disdain. "Begin planetary bombardment," he ordered. The first barrage of plasma lances streaked toward Earth's surface, only to explode harmlessly against an invisible barrier. "What?" Zalvorin snarled. "Shields." Earth's planetary defense grid, a network of energy barriers powered by fusion reactors hidden beneath major cities, absorbed the attack with ease. Then, the counterattack began. Mass drivers on the moon fired kinetic projectiles, moving at Mach 20, tearing through the Varkari fleet like hot knives through flesh. Stealth ships emerged from the darkness, disabling Varkari warships with precision EMP strikes. On Earth, the UEDF launched squadrons of automated drone fighters, swarming enemy ships like angry hornets. Missiles equipped with AI targeting systems hunted the weak points of alien capital ships, detonating with terrifying accuracy. Zalvorin watched in horror as a third of his fleet was annihilated within minutes. This is impossible," he whispered. The humans weren't just resisting, they were winning. The tides turned. Desperation took hold. Zalvorin ordered his remaining fleet to regroup and deploy ground forces, believing that Earth's surface would be easier to conquer. Drop pods, filled with Varkari shock troopers, rained down onto the surface. They landed in New York, London, and Beijing, expecting helpless civilians. Instead, they found fortified cities, autonomous defense turrets, and highly trained soldiers equipped with power armor and plasma weaponry. The humans were fighting like seasoned warriors, as if they had been preparing for this moment for decades. Zalvorin, watching from orbit, felt a new sensation creep into his mind: fear. The humans had been underestimated, and it was the greatest mistake the Varkari had ever made. Humanity strikes back. The Varkari fleet was in shambles. Admiral Zalvorin stood on the bridge of the Vorkal, his mandibles twitching in frustration. This was not how the battle was supposed to go. Humanity was supposed to be weak, their defenses laughable. Instead, his fleet was being systematically dismantled by a force that should have been primitive. "Status report," he barked. A Varkari officer hesitated before responding. 36 warships lost, another 20 heavily damaged. The humans' orbital defenses are unlike anything we've seen. Zalvorin gritted his fangs. This was impossible. The humans weren't just resisting. They were fighting with tactical precision that rivaled some of the strongest galactic militaries. How had they advanced so quickly? There was no time for answers. If he didn't regain control of the battlefield, this invasion would end in humiliating defeat. Earth's counteroffensive. On Earth's Lunar Defense Station, Commander Elias Kane studied the battle from a holographic display, his expression calm but razor-sharp. The Varkari thought they had the advantage, but they had no idea what was coming next. "Begin Phase 2, he ordered. From the dark side of the moon, a fleet of human warships decloaked. These weren't just any warships. They were hybrid vessels, a fusion of human ingenuity and reverse-engineered alien technology. The flagship, UEDF Titan, led the charge. Its massive railguns fired magnetic slugs at near-light speeds, punching through Varkari armor like paper. Autonomous attack drones swarmed enemy ships, exploiting weaknesses in their shields. Kane watched as the Varkari struggled to adjust. Their battle doctrine was built on overwhelming power. They had never faced an enemy that fought with intelligence and adaptability. "They still think we're weak," Kane murmured. He turned to his communications officer. "Broadcast a message to their command ship." The message. On the Vorkal, Zalvorin's hollow screen flickered to life. A human stood before him, a hardened warrior with piercing eyes. "I'm Commander Elias Kane of the United Earth Defense Force," the human said. "You thought we would be easy prey. You thought wrong." Zalvorin's mandibles clenched in anger. "Your resistance is meaningless. You cannot. Your fleet is falling apart, Admiral." Kane cut him off. "Your ground forces are trapped in our cities, being hunted down one by one. You made a mistake coming here. Now you're going to pay for it." The transmission cut off, leaving Zalvorin seething. "Deploy all remaining forces," he roared. "Crush them." The war on the ground. Varkari drop pods had landed in New York, London, Beijing, and Moscow, each carrying elite shock troops. They expected to subjugate the local population with ease. Instead, they were ambushed. In New York, Varkari warriors advanced through the city's shattered streets, expecting terrified humans to surrender. Then the snipers opened fire. From the rooftops, human soldiers in advanced combat armor took precision shots, targeting weak points in the aliens' exoskeletal plating. Drones armed with explosives swooped down, detonating in the middle of enemy formations. In London, Varkari squads tried to push into the city center, only to be met with automated turret defenses that shredded them on sight. Human Special Forces units engaged in brutal guerrilla warfare, using EMP grenades and plasma rifles to devastate the enemy ranks. Beijing's defenses were even more ruthless. Entire streets collapsed beneath invading forces, revealing hidden underground tunnels from which heavily armored troops rose up like specters, eliminating the invaders before they could react. The Varkari weren't fighting civilians. They were fighting soldiers trained for war. Turning the tide. Back in orbit, the battle had reached its climax. The UEDF fleet cut through the Varkari forces with ruthless efficiency. Humanity's ships, though fewer in number, were faster, smarter, and deadlier. As the Vorkal reeled from repeated railgun strikes, Zalvorin realized the truth. The humans had played them from the start. They had allowed the Varkari to think they were weak. They had let them come close, only to spring the most well-executed trap in modern warfare. And now, The Varkari invasion force was collapsing. "Sir," a desperate officer called out, "we have to retreat." Zalvorin looked at the battlefield, at the burning husks of his once mighty warships. For the first time in his life, he felt fear. He turned to his helm officer. "Initiate emergency warp. Get us out of here." The surviving Varkari ships turned and fled, their mighty war fleet reduced to less than a quarter of its original strength. Humanity had done the impossible. They had stood against the might of a galactic empire and won. Aftermath. On Lunar Defense Station, Kane watched as the last of the Varkari ships disappeared into deep space. A smirk played at his lips. The war wasn't over. The Varkari would return, angrier than ever. But now, the galaxy knew the truth. Humanity wasn't weak. They were something to be feared. And when the Varkari came back, they'd be ready. The Empire's wrath. The Varkari fleet was in full retreat, their warships limping into hyperspace, leaving behind the wreckage of their failed invasion. Earth had stood defiant, proving that humanity was not the weak, primitive species the Varkari had believed them to be. But even as the celebrations began, Commander Elias Kane knew one undeniable truth. This wasn't over. The Varkari would return. And next time, they wouldn't underestimate humanity. The cost of victory. The Lunar Defense Station's war room was filled with a tense silence. Officers and strategists examined the damage reports. Casualties. Over 40 million dead worldwide. Infrastructure damage. 5 major cities reduced to rubble. Fleet losses. 27% of Earth's warships destroyed or beyond repair. It was a victory, but one that had left humanity scarred and bleeding. Kane stood at the center of the room, arms crossed, listening to the reports. His face was expressionless, but inside, he was calculating the next move. "We can't sit here waiting for them to come back," Admiral Chin said. "The Varkari know our defenses now. They'll return with a fleet 10 times bigger." Kane exhaled sharply. "Then we don't wait." He turned to his intelligence officer. "What do we know about the Varkari's home territory?" Major Alex Graves brought up a star map. "Their empire is massive, spanning over 30 systems. But our recon drones managed to track their retreat. They're regrouping at Rathuan Prime, a heavily fortified military outpost." Kane studied the display. "If we strike now, while they're weakened, we can send them a message. We're not just defending Earth. We're coming for them." A murmur spread across the room. It was unthinkable. A species that had barely stepped into galactic warfare, going on the offensive against an empire. But Kane knew one thing. If humanity stayed on defense, it would only delay the inevitable. Operation Phantom Spear. The War Council debated for 6 hours before coming to a decision. They would strike first. The plan was codenamed Operation Phantom Spear, a rapid hit-and-run assault on Rathuan Prime to cripple the Varkari's ability to launch an immediate counterattack. The UEDF Titan, humanity's most advanced warship, would lead the attack, supported by a fleet of stealth-capable cruisers and assault teams. It was bold, dangerous, maybe even reckless, but it was humanity's best chance. The infiltration begins. 3 days later, the fleet exited hyperspace at the edge of the Rathuan system. The planet loomed ahead, a massive, volcanic world, its atmosphere choked with ash and fire. Orbital stations and Varkari battleships patrolled the system, but they weren't expecting an attack. Kane stood on the bridge of the Titan, watching the enemy formation. "Stay cloaked. No sudden moves." The fleet slipped through the defenses, using the system's dense asteroid belt as cover. The plan was to deploy ground teams, plant tactical nukes on the Varkari command centers, and get out before the main fleet could respond. But just as the infiltration team was preparing to launch, something changed. "Commander," Graves called out, "we have a problem." The unexpected truth. A new fleet appeared on the scanners, but it wasn't Varkari. The ships were bigger, sleeker, and more advanced than anything humanity had encountered. Black, angular, and bristling with unknown energy weapons. Kane's gut tightened. "Those aren't Varkari warships." "They're not," Graves confirmed, his voice low. "And they're not friendly." The fleet didn't fire at the humans. Instead, they opened fire on the Varkari, obliterating their stations and ships with terrifying efficiency. Kane watched in stunned silence as the Varkari warships were torn apart in seconds. This was no battle. This was a slaughter. "Sir, who the hell are they?" Kane's blood ran cold. The Varkari weren't the top of the food chain. Humanity had just walked into a war that was much, much bigger than they had ever imagined. Humanity's reckoning. The Varkari had fled, their once mighty war fleet shattered. But for Commander Elias Kane and the United Earth Defense Force, the war was far from over. Humanity had won a battle, but the Varkari Empire would return. Stronger, smarter, and with vengeance in their hearts. As Earth's defenders prepared for the inevitable, a disturbing discovery threatened to change everything. The aftermath of victory. The Lunar Defense Station bustled with activity. Engineers worked around the clock, repairing damaged ships, analyzing battle data, and reverse engineering Varkari technology. Kane stood in the war room, his fingers tracing the holographic projection of the battlefield reports. It was a hard-earned victory, but the losses were still severe. Millions dead, entire cities left in ruins. Humanity had proven its strength, but at a terrible cost. A voice interrupted his thoughts. "Sir, you need to see this." It was Dr. Evelyn Carter, one of Earth's top xenobiologists. She gestured toward a data pad with an urgency that set Kane on edge. "What is it?" he asked. Dr. Carter took a deep breath. "We've been studying the bodies of fallen Varkari soldiers, and we found something disturbing." She tapped a few buttons on the console, pulling up a 3D rendering of Varkari genetic markers. "This isn't just an alien species, Commander." She looked him in the eye. "It's a bioengineered war race, one that didn't evolve naturally." Kane frowned. "You're saying someone created them?" Dr. Carter nodded. "And I don't think the Varkari are at the top of the food chain." The hidden puppeteers. The revelation changed everything. The Varkari weren't just conquerors. They were weapons, possibly controlled by a greater power hidden in the stars. If that was true, then Earth had just declared war against something even bigger than the Varkari Empire. Kane called an emergency meeting. The UEDF's highest-ranking officials, intelligence officers, and scientific minds gathered in the war room. "This war isn't over," Kane said, his voice firm. "The Varkari will return, but we're not just fighting them anymore. We need to find out who's pulling the strings." General Harper, an older military strategist, leaned forward. "Are we even sure we can fight them? If they control an empire as large as the Varkaris, we might be walking into a war we can't win." Kane didn't hesitate. "We didn't win today because we had the biggest fleet or the most advanced weapons. We won because we adapted, we learned, and we fought like hell. That's what we'll do again." The room fell into silence. Then, one by one, heads nodded in agreement. The Varkari returned. The preparations were almost too late. 3 weeks after the battle, an emergency distress signal was received from Mars Colony 04. The transmission was garbled, but one phrase came through clear as day. "They're back, and they're not alone." The Varkari had returned, but they weren't alone. Larger warships, unknown to human records, appeared alongside them. Black, jagged, and bristling with weapons. The real war was about to begin. Kane stood aboard the UEDF Titan, staring at the incoming enemy fleet. He took a deep breath. All forces, battle stations. The fight for humanity's survival had only just begun.